Freedom does not arrive with a retirement date. It begins with awareness of the present moment. Think for a moment about your entire life being a preparation for a single moment in the future. A moment when, after decades of work, stress, and postponing happiness, you finally reach that mythical state called retirement. How often have you heard phrases like, "Work hard now so you can enjoy later," or "One day you'll finally be able to rest"? This idea is deeply embedded in our culture, sold to us like a golden ticket to a paradise of freedom. But what if I told you that this entire concept is one of the biggest lies you've ever been told? Today, we're going to dive deep into a truth that society rarely wants you to confront, a truth that philosophers like Alan Watts, psychologists, and modern thinkers have been whispering for decades. By the end of this video, I'll reveal the most powerful realization of all, one that could radically transform the way you live your life starting today. First, let's pause and truly think about the retirement narrative. From a very young age, we're conditioned to believe that life follows a linear path: education, employment, retirement, and finally freedom. It's a script that millions follow without question. You go to school, get good grades, find a stable job, work for 40+ years, and then, if you're lucky and your health allows, you can enjoy a few years of rest before the inevitable end. But here's the disturbing part. Most people who reach retirement don't find the bliss they imagine. Studies from the National Institute on Aging reveal that depression and a sense of purposelessness increase significantly among retirees. The University of Michigan's Health and Retirement Study showed that retirees face a 40% increased risk of clinical depression compared to their working peers. Why? Because for decades, their identity, routine, and self-worth were tied to their job. The idea that freedom exists only after years of sacrifice is not only misleading, it's damaging. Alan Watts often spoke about this destructive cycle. He described life as a kind of dance where we're meant to enjoy each step, each movement, rather than rushing towards some distant goal. Watts warned against what he called the deferred life plan, where we treat life as a series of necessary evils leading to a final reward. But life doesn't work like that. There's no dress rehearsal. This right now is it. Now let's explore where this narrative actually comes from. Historically, the modern concept of retirement didn't even exist until the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Otto von Bismarck, the German chancellor at the time, introduced one of the first state-run retirement systems in the 1880s, setting the retirement age at 65. But at that time, the average life expectancy was barely reaching 60. The system was never designed for decades of leisure. It was a political strategy, a way to clear the workforce for younger generations. Fast forward to today, and the retirement dream has been repackaged and sold globally. Corporate systems, advertising industries, and even government policies have perpetuated the idea that we should exchange our present happiness for future security. Retirement plans, pensions, and investment schemes became the modern carrots dangling in front of us, keeping us moving through the maze of consumer-driven productivity. But let me ask you something deeply personal. How many moments of true presence have you sacrificed for a future that's not even guaranteed? How many times have you postponed a dream, a trip, a passion project, or even quality time with your loved ones because you told yourself, "One day, when I retire"? Psychologists call this phenomenon future bias, the tendency to overvalue future rewards at the expense of present joy. Behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner in economic sciences, has explored how humans often make irrational decisions when it comes to long-term satisfaction versus short-term happiness. In his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman explains how we are wired to delay gratification endlessly, believing that tomorrow holds the key to fulfillment. But the truth is, tomorrow is a moving target. Alan Watts warned us about this trap. He spoke of how people live in a constant state of anticipation, always looking forward to the weekend, the next vacation, the next promotion, or ultimately retirement. And in that cycle, life passes by unnoticed. Days turn into months, months into years, and suddenly the realization hits. The best years were spent waiting. Let's take a moment here. Reflect on your own life. Are you living fully now, or are you merely existing in preparation for a distant promise of freedom? This isn't just a philosophical question, it's a call to action. Interestingly, this concept isn't unique to Western philosophy. In Eastern traditions like Zen Buddhism, which Alan Watts often referenced, there's a profound focus on the present moment. Mindfulness teaches us that true peace is found not in some external milestone, but in fully embracing the here and now. Think of the countless people who work tirelessly their whole lives only to reach retirement and discover that their health is failing, their relationships are distant, or worse, that they don't even know who they are without their job. Is that the freedom we were promised? And here's something even more startling. According to the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, the first 6 years after retirement are associated with a significant spike in mortality rates, especially among men. Why? Because the sudden loss of routine, purpose, and social connection takes a massive psychological toll. Yet despite all this, society keeps pushing the narrative. The media bombards us with images of smiling retirees on beaches holding cocktails, without showing the isolation, the boredom, and the existential emptiness many actually face. Why does this myth persist? The answer is simple. An economy built on consumption and labor depends on people buying into the dream. If you're always chasing future freedom, you'll keep working harder, spending more, and sacrificing your now for a hypothetical later. In the next part of this video, we're going to uncover how this lie not only shapes our finances, but also distorts our mental health, our relationships, and our sense of identity. And most importantly, I'll share with you practical, research-backed strategies to break free from this cycle and start reclaiming your life today. But before we dive deeper, I want you to pause and ask yourself, am I living or just preparing to live? Let's dive deeper into how this lie about retirement and freedom doesn't just influence our finances or long-term plans. It infiltrates every corner of our psychological well-being, our relationships, and our overall sense of purpose. Think for a moment about how many people you know who structure their entire lives around their careers. Their self-worth becomes tied to their job titles, their salaries, and the approval they receive from superiors. It's as if their identity is stored in their employee ID badge. This phenomenon has a name: identity foreclosure, a term used in a psychology to describe when individuals prematurely commit to an identity without truly exploring who they are beyond external roles. The American Psychological Association has published numerous studies showing how this narrow identity development creates emotional fragility. Once retirement arrives, many individuals face an identity crisis. Who am I if not a teacher, a manager, an engineer, or a doctor? Without the structure of work, the very foundations of their self-image collapse. Alan Watts often spoke about this. He argued that by making work the central pillar of our identity, we end up treating ourselves like cogs in a machine, useful only when producing, valuable only when working. We stop seeing ourselves as dynamic, creative, evolving beings. This internalization of labor as self-worth goes deeper than most people realize. Sociologist Max Weber, in his seminal work, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, highlighted how modern Western society glorifies work for work's sake. Productivity became not just a means to an end, but a moral value. Leisure, on the other hand, became suspect, something to be earned only after decades of sacrifice. And here's the dark irony. When people finally reach retirement, many struggle to enjoy leisure at all. After years of associating rest with laziness and idleness with failure, the mind rebels against stillness. Even moments of peace feel uncomfortable, almost guilty. This creates a psychological loop that's hard to break. The person longs for freedom, but feels unworthy of it once they attain it. This is what psychologist Barry Schwartz, author of The Paradox of Choice, describes as the emotional paralysis that comes from distorted expectations and internalized social pressures. Now let's talk about the impact this lie has on our relationships. How many times have family gatherings, vacations, or simple moments with loved ones been postponed because of work obligations? The logic always sounds reasonable. I'm doing this for us, for our future. But in reality, life is happening now. Children grow up, parents age, and relationships drift apart, all while we're busy preparing for a future chapter. Research from Harvard University's 75-year-long study on adult development offers compelling evidence that the greatest predictor of long-term happiness and health isn't career success or financial wealth. It's the quality of our close relationships. The study found that people who maintained strong social bonds were not only happier, but lived longer and had better mental health. Yet the retirement lie encourages us to put these very relationships on hold. Alan Watts, with his unmistakable clarity, often reminded us that life isn't a journey with a destination. It's more like music or a dance. The purpose is not to reach the end as quickly as possible, but to enjoy every note, every step along the way. Imagine a symphony where the conductor rushes the orchestra to get to the final chord. That's how most of us live, rushing through life's movements, hoping to arrive at some climactic moment of peace and satisfaction that never really comes. And what about health? The World Health Organization reports a worrying trend. Chronic stress-related illnesses are skyrocketing, with cardiovascular diseases and anxiety disorders at the forefront. Long working hours, unrealistic productivity expectations, and the constant pressure to keep up are eroding our physical and mental well-being long before retirement ever arrives. And here lies another bitter truth. Many won't even reach retirement in good health. The years they've sacrificed for a better later come at the expense of their body and mind. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, nearly 60% of adults over the age of 65 live with at least 2 chronic conditions. So what's the solution? Should we abandon responsibility? Should we quit our jobs and live recklessly? Of course not. The message here isn't about rejecting work or discipline. It's about redefining your relationship with time, with purpose, and with what freedom truly means. The first step is awareness. Recognizing that you've been sold a one-dimensional vision of life is empowering. Awareness creates space for choice. From this point, you can start making conscious decisions about how you spend your time, how you balance work and personal joy, and how you cultivate meaning beyond productivity metrics. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning, emphasized that humans are driven not by the pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain, but by the search for meaning. Meaning exists in the small moments. The conversation with a friend, the laughter with a child, the satisfaction of learning something new, the beauty of a sunset. You don't have to wait for retirement to start living fully. You don't have to wait for permission from society to prioritize your well-being, your relationships, and your personal growth. And here's something interesting to consider. Countries with a stronger emphasis on work-life balance, like Denmark and the Netherlands, report higher levels of overall life satisfaction. These cultures don't treat leisure as a reward, but as a fundamental part of living well. They invest in social connections, personal hobbies, and community engagement as much as they do in their careers. Now ask yourself this: what brings you joy today? What simple act can you do right now that nourishes your soul? If the answer doesn't come easily, perhaps that's a sign that you've been running on autopilot for too long. In the next segment, we're going to explore practical strategies, psychological tools, daily habits, and mindset shifts that you can start applying immediately to reclaim your time and rebuild your sense of freedom starting from the present moment. And remember, the most powerful revelation of this entire video is yet to come. It's the final piece that ties everything together, the one that could forever change the way you experience your life from this day forward. But before we get there, take a moment right now and reflect. If this was your last day on Earth, would you be proud of how you've spent your time? Let's now shift our focus to something many people overlook when discussing retirement and freedom: the internal psychological habits that keep us trapped. These habits are so deeply ingrained that even if you were to retire tomorrow with millions in your bank account, you would still feel restless, anxious, and incomplete. Alan Watts, in one of his most memorable talks, described the endless pursuit of future goals as a kind of spiritual disease. He explained that we live in a constant state of expectation, always looking to the next thing, whether it's a promotion, a bigger house, a fatter retirement fund, or even enlightenment itself. Watts compared this cycle to a donkey chasing a carrot tied to a stick, always just out of reach. This mindset becomes a way of life, and breaking free requires more than changing your financial situation or work status. It requires a profound mental shift. One of the first steps is to understand the concept of psychological time. Philosopher and spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, in his book The Power of Now, explains that psychological time is the habit of living in a mental projection of the future or the past, never fully inhabiting the present. Tolle warns that most human suffering comes not from present circumstances, but from our resistance to them, our constant yearning for a different time and place. You may think that retirement will finally bring you peace, but if your mind is addicted to living in the future, that habit won't magically disappear when you stop working. You'll simply find new things to worry about. What do I do with all this free time? What is my purpose now? What if I run out of money? The scenery changes, but the mental pattern stays the same. To escape this loop, you need to cultivate what psychologists call present moment awareness. This doesn't mean abandoning goals or planning for the future, but it means learning to be fully engaged in the process, not just the outcome. It means finding meaning in the journey, not just the destination. Let's look at practical steps you can take starting today. First, reframe your definition of success. Instead of measuring it by external achievements or distant milestones, measure it by how fully you are living each day. Are you learning something new? Are you connecting with people who matter to you? Are you taking care of your physical and emotional health? These are metrics that actually contribute to long-term fulfillment. Second, integrate micro moments of joy into your daily routine. Behavioral scientists like Dr. Barbara Fredrickson from the University of North Carolina have shown through years of research that small positive moments, what she calls micro moments of positivity, have a cumulative effect on your overall happiness and resilience. Waiting until retirement to experience joy is like refusing to eat until the weekend. You'll starve emotionally long before then. Third, create space for reflection. Start journaling your thoughts at the end of each day. Write down not what you accomplished, but what made you feel alive. This simple practice helps shift your focus from endless productivity to meaningful presence. And here's something crucial. Cultivate hobbies and interests that are not tied to your job or financial gain. Studies in positive psychology show that people with strong avocational interests, activities done purely for personal fulfillment, experience less depression and anxiety both before and after retirement. Whether it's painting, gardening, learning a musical instrument, volunteering, or simply taking long walks in nature, these activities reconnect you with yourself beyond the label of worker or professional. Alan Watts often emphasized the value of play. He believed that life at its core is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be enjoyed. Children understand this instinctively. They play without worrying about outcomes. But as adults, we unlearn this essential skill. Rediscovering your capacity for play is not a luxury. It's a psychological necessity. Now let's address another dimension of this lie, the illusion of security. One of the most powerful reasons people cling to the retirement myth is the belief that it will bring lasting safety and certainty. But here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no ultimate security in life. Economist Nassim Nicholas Taleb, in his book The Black Swan, explains how unpredictable rare events like market crashes, health crises, or personal losses can completely upend even the most carefully constructed plans. The more we try to control the future, the more fragile we become when it doesn't go according to the script. Ironically, those who adapt best to life's uncertainties are the ones who embrace change and stay present. Flexibility, emotional agility, and psychological resilience matter far more than rigid financial strategies or career milestones. So, how do you cultivate this resilience? Start by practicing gratitude, not as a vague concept, but as a daily discipline. Dr. Robert Emmons, one of the leading researchers on gratitude, has demonstrated that people who regularly write down what they're grateful for experience lower levels of depression and higher levels of well-being. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's available, from future longing to present contentment. Another powerful practice is mindfulness meditation. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice can reduce stress, increase gray matter in brain regions associated with emotional regulation, and improve overall mental health. You don't need to sit for hours on a mountaintop. Just 5 to 10 minutes of mindful breathing or conscious observation of your surroundings can start to rewire your brain. Finally, let's talk about community. One of the greatest threats in the post-retirement phase is isolation. Humans are social beings wired for connection. Loneliness has been linked to higher rates of cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and premature death. Even if you're still years away from retirement, begin nurturing your social network now. Engage in meaningful conversations. Join groups that align with your interests. Volunteer. Build connections that aren't tied to your professional identity. Because when the day comes that you step away from your career, it won't be your job title that sustains you. It will be your relationships, your sense of purpose, and your ability to live fully in the present moment. In the final segment of this video, we're going to tie all these insights together and reveal the most powerful realization of all, the one that Alan Watts and countless other great thinkers have been urging us to grasp for generations. This realization could change not just how you view retirement, but how you experience every single day of your life moving forward. But before we get there, ask yourself this: am I building a life I'll enjoy living now, or just a life I hope to enjoy someday? Now we arrive at the most important and powerful realization of all, the one that has the potential to dismantle this entire illusion and shift the trajectory of your life starting today. Alan Watts, in one of his most quoted lectures, asked a simple but transformative question: what if money were no object? He invited people to imagine their lives if survival and financial security weren't the constant background noise driving their decisions. What would you do with your time? How would you spend your days? What passions would you pursue? What relationships would you nurture? But here's the twist. The question isn't really about money, it's about mindset. Because even people who achieve financial freedom often remain mentally imprisoned by fear, by scarcity thinking, and by the deeply ingrained belief that they're not allowed to fully live until some distant milestone is reached. The real prison is psychological. The real lie isn't just about retirement, it's about postponing life itself. And here's the great secret, the core of this entire reflection. Freedom is not a destination, it's a state of mind. You don't arrive at freedom after a certain number of years worked or after saving a certain amount of money. Freedom happens the moment you stop waiting for life to begin and start fully engaging with the present moment. Philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti once said, "Freedom is not at the end of the road. It is in the first step you take." Think about that. Every day you wake up and choose how to approach your life, whether with gratitude or resentment, with engagement or detachment, with presence or with distraction, you are choosing either freedom or captivity. You might still have a job. You might still have responsibilities, but you can reclaim moments of freedom within the structure of your life right now. Freedom is in waking up 15 minutes earlier to enjoy a peaceful cup of tea while watching the sunrise. Freedom is in taking 5 conscious breaths before diving into the next task. Freedom is in choosing to have that difficult but necessary conversation with someone you love rather than postponing it endlessly. Freedom is in giving yourself permission to laugh, to play, to explore creativity, and to dance like no one is watching, even if only for a few minutes a day. And perhaps most importantly, freedom is in shifting your relationship with time. Instead of seeing time as an enemy, a scarce resource you're always running out of, see it as your most abundant currency when you live with intention. Moments, no matter how small, become rich with meaning when you're fully present. Neurologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote that, "Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Even in the most extreme situations, Frankl found freedom within himself. That kind of mental liberation is available to you too, right now. Now let's ground this in practical action. You might be wondering, what should I do next? How do I take the insights from this video and turn them into real, lasting change? Start with this. Redesign one small part of your day. Choose a moment where you normally rush, worry, or distract yourself and transform it into a space for presence and intention. If it's your morning routine, slow it down. If it's your lunch break, step outside and breathe fresh air. If it's your commute, listen to something uplifting or simply observe the world around you without judgment. Then begin to expand. Schedule regular time for activities that nourish your soul. Not someday, but this week. Reconnect with people who bring you joy. Pick up that book you've been meaning to read. Go for that walk in the park. Create art, play music, or simply sit in stillness. You don't have to dismantle your entire life overnight. True transformation begins with small, consistent shifts in awareness. And most importantly, start questioning every decision that is rooted in fear or in blind adherence to societal scripts. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it brings me alive or because I believe I have to? The more you align your daily actions with what truly matters to you, the more you'll experience moments of genuine freedom long before retirement ever comes. And here's one final thought to leave you with. Life doesn't start later. It doesn't begin after the next promotion, after the kids grow up, after you pay off the house, or after you retire. Life is happening now, in this breath, in this second, in this choice. Alan Watts captured this truth beautifully when he said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play." So as you close this video, I invite you to pause, to take a deep breath, and to ask yourself, if I truly believe that freedom starts now, what would I do differently today? And if this message resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Tell us what small change you are going to make today to reclaim your life, your time, and your sense of freedom. Because the most powerful step toward freedom is the one you take now. Thanks for looking.